Amani's heart shattered at the look of betrayal in his eyes. After the council adjourned, Malik sought her out. "Why didn't you speak for me?" he demanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and anger. Amani struggled to find the words. I couldn't," she said weakly, but Malik shook his head. "You chose them over me," he said, walking away before she could explain. Alone in the dark, Amani realized that the prophecy's betrayal had already begun. Malik left the village the next morning, his head held high despite the weight of the council's verdict. Villagers watched in silence as he walked away, their expressions a mixture of relief and guilt. Amani stayed hidden, unable to face him or the judgmental eyes of her people. As she watched him disappear into the forest, tears streamed down her face. She had done what the prophecy demanded, but at what cost? Days turned into weeks, and the village settled back into routine. However, Amani could not shake the emptiness that Malik's absence left behind. She questioned the spirits, demanding to know why the prophecy required such cruelty. But the spirits offered no comfort, only the cryptic reassurance that her actions were necessary. In her solitude, Amani began to realize that her love for Malik had not diminished. If anything, it had grown stronger, complicating her already heavy burden. Though Malik was gone, the village was far from at peace. Crops failed, livestock fell ill, and the air grew heavy with unease. Villagers began to whisper that the theft of the sacred artifact had cursed them. Some even suggested that Amani's judgment had been clouded by her feelings for Malik, and the spirits were punishing them for her failure to uphold their will. Amani faced mounting pressure from the council to find a solution. "The spirits will guide us," she promised, though her faith in their guidance wavered. In secret, she began to search for clues about the artifact's disappearance, hoping to uncover the truth and restore balance to the village. Her investigation led her to a shocking discovery. A group of villagers had conspired to frame Malik, hoping his exile would appease the spirits and bring prosperity back to the village. Armed with the truth, Amani confronted the conspirators in secret. "Why would you do this?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. The leader of the group, an elder named Kofi, spoke with defiance. Malik's presence was a threat to the village. His exile was necessary. Amani's fury boiled over, but she kept her composure. "The spirits will not forgive this deception," she warned. That night, Amani sought the spirits' guidance. Her mind and heart conflicted. To right the wrongs, she would need to bring Malik back, a decision that could either fulfill or defy the prophecy. The spirits, for once, remained silent, leaving the choice in her hands. With a heavy heart but newfound determination, Amani resolved to leave the village and find Malik, knowing that her actions could alter the course of their intertwined fates forever. Amani prepared herself for the journey to find Malik. She told no one of her plans, slipping away from the village under the cover of night. Her heart pounded with both fear and hope as she ventured into the forest, the same forest where Malik had disappeared weeks ago. Armed with only her staff and the knowledge granted by the spirits, she pushed forward, determined to make things right. The forest was dense and foreboding, shadows playing tricks on her mind. Yet as she walked, she felt a strange sense of clarity. Her love for Malik and the weight of her guilt guided her steps, and she whispered a silent prayer to the spirits to protect her on this perilous journey. The further she went, the more she realized how far she was willing to go, not just for Malik, but for her own redemption. Deep within the forest, Amani faced her first real challenge. A sudden storm rolled in, bringing torrential rain and howling winds that obscured her path. Her resolve wavered as she struggled to find shelter, slipping and falling in the mud. Exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but a faint glow in the distance caught her attention. Following the light, she stumbled upon an ancient tree with roots forming a natural canopy. As she rested beneath it, the spirits appeared to her, their forms illuminated by the storm's flashes of lightning. Your path is righteous, but your trials are not over, they warned. They showed her visions of Malik, lost, bitter, and in danger. Amani's determination solidified. She would find him no matter the cost. The storm subsided by dawn, and Amani resumed her search. As she journeyed deeper into the forest, she came across signs of Malik's presence. A piece of his cloak snagged on a branch, footprints near a stream. Her heart leapt with hope. She followed the clues tirelessly, driven by the thought of seeing him again. Finally, she stumbled upon a clearing where the remnants of a small campfire lay. Malik had been here recently, and Amani's pace quickened. She called out his name, her voice echoing through the trees. Though she received no response, she felt closer to him than ever. The forest seemed to guide her now, its once daunting presence feeling almost protective. She knew she was on the right path. After days of searching, Amani found Malik sitting by a riverbank, his back turned to her. His once proud shoulders now slumped with weariness, and his clothes were worn and dirty. "Malik," she called softly, her voice trembling with emotion. He turned, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. "Amani, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice rough but laced with vulnerability. Amani approached him cautiously, her heart aching at the sight of his disheveled state. "I came to find you," she said simply, "to bring you back." Malik shook his head, bitterness flashing in his eyes. "Back to what? A village that cast me out? People who despise me?" Amani knelt beside him, placing a hand on his arm. "You were betrayed," she said, "and I made a mistake, but I'm here now to make it right." Though Malik was moved by Amani's words, the pain of betrayal still lingered in his heart. "You could have stopped this," he said, his voice low. "You could have spoken for me." Amani nodded, her eyes filled with regret. "I know. I was afraid of defying the spirits, afraid of what would happen to the village. But I see now that my silence hurt you more than anything else." Malik's gaze softened, but the tension between them remained. "I don't know if I can go back," he admitted. "Not after everything that's happened." Amani took his hand in hers. "The village needs you, Malik, and so do I. Together, we can fix this." Malik looked at her for a long moment, the weight of his decision evident. Finally, he nodded. "If I go back, it's because I trust you. Don't let me down again." Amani vowed silently to honor that trust, knowing that their journey was far from over. Amani and Malik set off toward the village, their steps heavy with uncertainty. The forest that had once felt oppressive now seemed to breathe new life into their weary spirits. Amani's heart was buoyed by Malik's agreement to return, but she knew the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. As they walked, she shared what she had learned about the conspiracy against him, the betrayal of trust that had fueled his exile. Malik listened in silence, his jaw clenched as he processed the revelations. "They destroyed my reputation and my life," he said finally. "How can I face those people again?" Amani stopped and looked into his eyes. "You face them with the truth. The village needs to know what happened, and you deserve justice. Together, we can make them see." Her words ignited a small spark of hope in Malik, but doubt still lingered. As they neared the edge of the forest, Amani and Malik encountered a strange figure, a hooded man blocking their path. He carried a staff adorned with charms and symbols, marking him as a rogue mystic. "Turn back," he warned, his voice raspy and filled with menace. "The village is not ready for your return, Seer." Amani stepped forward, her own staff glowing faintly in response to the mystic's presence. "Who are you to make such claims?" she demanded. The mystic chuckled darkly. "I am but a messenger, warning you of the chaos that will follow. The spirits may guide you, but their path is not always kind." The encounter left them shaken, but Amani resolved to continue. "We can't stop now," she said firmly. Malik, though uneasy, agreed. They pressed on, the mystics' cryptic words echoing in their minds. When Amani and Malik finally reached the village, they were met with a mix of reactions. Some villagers gasped in surprise, while others whispered accusations under their breath. The council members quickly assembled, their expressions wary. "You have returned uninvited," one elder said, his tone cold. "Why are you here?" Amani stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are here to reveal the truth. Malik was falsely accused of the theft of the sacred artifact, and I have proof of his innocence." Her declaration sent ripples of shock through the crowd. The council hesitated, their authority challenged. Meanwhile, Malik stood silently beside her, his presence a reminder of the injustice he had endured. Though some villagers appeared receptive to Amani's words, others clung to their mistrust, setting the stage for a confrontation. Amani gathered the village in the central square, where she presented her findings. She called upon the conspirators, challenging them to confess their roles in framing Malik. The tension was palpable as Kofi, the elder who had led the scheme, was forced to step forward. "It was for the good of the village," Kofi tried to justify. "We believe this presence would anger the spirits." Amani's voice rose with righteous anger. "You chose lies and betrayal over truth and unity. Your actions have brought nothing but suffering to us all." Malik spoke next, his tone calm but firm. "I did nothing to harm this village, yet I paid the price for your fear. It's time to set things right." Kofi, realizing he had no way out, finally admitted to the plot. The villagers were stunned, their trust in their leaders shattered. With the truth exposed, the council had no choice but to reinstate Malik's honor. Apologies were offered, but Malik remained guarded, the wounds of betrayal still fresh. "Words cannot undo the pain," he said, "but I will work with you to restore balance to the village if you are willing to accept change." Amani felt a flicker of hope as the villagers began to rally behind Malik. They offered to help him rebuild his life and pledged to be more vigilant against fear-driven decisions. Meanwhile, Amani sought the Spirit's guidance once more. "The prophecy is not yet fulfilled," they warned. "The greatest test lies ahead." Though uncertain of what was to come, Amani felt strengthened by the bond she and Malik had forged. Together they would face whatever destiny had in store. With Malik's honor restored, life in the village began to stabilize, but Amani's heart remained heavy. The Spirit's warning about the unfulfilled prophecy haunted her. As she performed her duties as the seer, villagers sought her wisdom more frequently, hoping for guidance after the council's corruption was revealed. However, Amani found it increasingly difficult to focus, her mind clouded by the looming shadow of the prophecy. One evening, as she meditated under the sacred tree, the spirits appeared to her once again. This time, their presence was more intense, their voices intertwining in an urgent chorus. "The time is near," they said. "Your choices will shape the fate of the village." Amani pressed them for answers, but they offered only cryptic hints, leaving her feeling both enlightened and burdened. She resolved to protect the village and Malik at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing her own happiness. Malik began to rise as a leader in the village, his strength and wisdom earning the respect of those who once doubted him. He organized the rebuilding of relationships and resources, focusing on unity. Amani watched from afar, her heart swelling with pride but also with trepidation. She knew the prophecy foretold betrayal, but she couldn't decipher how or when it would come to pass. One day, Malik approached her. "You've been quiet," he observed, concern etched on his face. "Is something troubling you?" Amani hesitated, torn between confiding in him and protecting him from the weight of the prophecy. "There are things I cannot yet explain," she said finally, "but know that I stand with you." Malik accepted her words, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Unbeknownst to them both, events were already in motion that would test their bond. The arrival of a mysterious traveler disrupted the fragile peace of the village. The man, dressed in fine but tattered robes, claimed to be a merchant from a distant land. He carried with him tales of other villages plagued by calamities, his words dripping with foreboding. Beware of false leaders and hidden truths, he warned during a gathering in the square. His gaze lingered on Malik and Amani, causing unease to ripple through the crowd. Amani confronted the traveler privately, seeking to understand his purpose. "What do you know of this village?" she demanded. The man's expression was unreadable. "I know only what the spirits allow me to see," he replied cryptically. "Your path is tangled with destiny, Seer. Be careful where your loyalties lie." His words chilled Amani, and she began to wonder if his presence was tied to the prophecy. Malik too grew wary, sensing the undercurrents of mistrust growing within the village. The travelers' ominous warnings began to sow seeds of doubt among the villagers. Whispers spread, questioning whether Malik and Amani were truly working for the village's good. Some accused them of bringing misfortune, while others speculated about the nature of their relationship. Amani tried to quell the rumors, but her efforts seemed only to add fuel to the fire. Malik confronted her one evening, frustration evident in his voice. "Why does it feel like we're moving backward?" he asked. "I thought the truth would bring us peace." Amani sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of her secret. "The truth is never simple," she replied, "but we must stay strong. The village will see reason." Despite her words, Amani felt her resolve wavering. The prophecy loomed ever closer, its shadow growing darker with each passing day. Late one night, as Amani meditated under the secret tree, a powerful vision overcame her. She saw flames consuming the village, the cries of her people echoing in her ears. In the chaos, Malik stood at the center, his face a mask of anguish. Amani reached for him in the vision, but as their hands touched, he vanished, replaced by the shadowy figure of the traveler. When she awoke, Amani was drenched in sweat, her heart racing. The spirits appeared, their voices grave. "The moment of betrayal is near," they said. "The choice you make will determine whether the village rises or falls." Amani's hands trembled as she realized the truth. Her love for Malik and her duty to the village were on a collision course. She resolved to face the prophecy head-on, no matter the cost, knowing that her decision would shape the destiny of all she held dear. The tension in the village reached a boiling point as the whispers about Amani and Malik grew louder. The mysterious traveler's influence was undeniable, his presence stirring doubt in the hearts of many. Some villagers now saw Malik as a false leader, a man who was too ambitious for their peace. The unrest was palpable, and Amani could no longer ignore the growing distance between herself and the people she had worked so hard to protect. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Amani and Malik sat on the porch of their small dwelling, their faces shadowed by the weight of their unspoken thoughts. Malik, with his brow furrowed, stared into the fire. "It's getting worse, Amani," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "No matter how much I try to unite them, there are those who won't believe in us." Amani nodded solemnly. "I fear the prophecy is beginning to take its toll. The villagers are afraid, and fear makes them blind." She grasped his hand, trying to offer comfort, but her heart felt heavy with the burden of the knowledge that she might be the cause of it all. Determined to put an end to the turmoil, Amani decided that it was time to confront the mysterious traveler directly. She knew that his cryptic words had stirred fear in the villagers, and his influence was making it impossible for her and Malik to restore peace. With Malik at her side, Amani sought the traveler in the village square, where he was speaking to a small crowd, his voice dripping with dark promises of change. When they approached him, the traveler smiled knowingly. "Ah, the seer and her beloved," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. Have you come to seek the truth? Or have you come to silence the truth I've already revealed? Amani's eyes narrowed. You've caused enough chaos here, she said, her voice steady despite the rising anger in her chest. You've spread lies and fear. It ends tonight, the traveler chuckled. Lies? Fear? The truth is always uncomfortable, Amani. But you'll see soon enough, destiny is not something you can avoid. His words lingered in the air like a heavy mist, and as Amani turned to leave, she felt the weight of his gaze following her. She knew she had to act quickly before his influence tore the village apart. As days passed, Amani felt an unease creeping in. The prophecy she had so desperately tried to avoid was beginning to unfold in ways she hadn't anticipated. The village had become divided, and Malik's once solid leadership was now in jeopardy. The seer felt the pull of destiny tightening around her, like the strings of a puppet master controlling her every move. Her love for Malik, once pure and steadfast, now felt like a heavy burden. One night, as Amani sat alone in the temple, the spirits appeared to her once more, their presence overwhelming. The moment has come, they intoned. The betrayal is yours to bear. Amani's heart sank, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly afraid. But Malik, she began, her voice trembling. The spirits cut her off. The prophecy does not lie, Amani. You will betray him, whether you wish to or not. It is the path you are destined to walk. The words echoed in her mind, and for a moment, she wondered if there was any way to escape the fate that was already set in motion. The village was on the brink of chaos. Tensions between Malik and the council reached a breaking point, with accusations flying and distrust brewing at every corner. Amani's heart ached as she watched the man she loved struggle to maintain his authority. Every decision seemed to be met with resistance, and the more he fought for the village, the more the villagers grew suspicious of his motives. Malik, no longer the confident leader he once was, began to question his own role in the village. One evening, after another heated argument with the council, he returned to their home, his face weary and defeated. Maybe they're right, he said quietly, sitting beside Amani. Maybe I've been too focused on leading them, and I've lost sight of what really matters. Amani placed a hand on his shoulder, her heart heavy with sorrow. You're doing what you believe is right, she said softly. But some truths are too painful to accept. She kissed him gently on the forehead, wishing she could offer more comfort. But deep inside, she knew that the moment of betrayal was drawing closer, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. As the prophecy loomed ever closer, Amani felt herself pulled in two directions. Her love for Malik was undeniable, but the pull of fate seemed even stronger. The spirits had warned her, and she knew that the time was coming when she would have to make a choice, one that would change the course of her life and the future of the village. One stormy night, as lightning flashed across the sky, Amani sat in the temple, contemplating her next move. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Malik, his expression filled with confusion and concern. Amani, he said, his voice shaking. I know something is wrong, I can feel it. She stood and faced him, her heart heavy with sorrow. Malik, there's something I need to tell you, she began, her voice faltering. I've been keeping a secret. The prophecy, it's real. I'm the one who's destined to betray you. Malik's face went pale, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside raged louder, but inside, the silence between them felt even more deafening. Amani could see the hurt in Malik's eyes, and her heart shattered. She knew that the path ahead would be painful, but she had to face the truth, no matter what the cost. The revelation hung heavily between Amani and Malik. The storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos in Amani's heart as she stood before Malik, the truth spilling from her lips like a dark prophecy she had never wanted to embrace. His face, once filled with love and admiration, now crumpled with disbelief. The man she loved,
The man who had fought so hard for the village's future was now the very one who might be torn away by the future she was bound to betray. Malik stepped back, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to piece together the truth from the fragments of their shared history. "So it's true?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You were always going to betray me?" His words pierced Amani's heart like daggers. "I didn't choose this," she choked out. "I never wanted this, but the prophecy," Malik held up his hand, silencing her. "The prophecy. It's always about that damn prophecy, isn't it?" His voice cracked with a mixture of pain and anger. "I loved you, Amani. I trusted you." She reached for him, her hands trembling, but Malik stepped away, his eyes filled with a hurt that cut deeper than any betrayal. "I need time," he said quietly, his voice breaking as he turned and left the temple. Amani stood alone in the cold, the weight of her prophecy more unbearable than ever. She had tried to protect him, to protect them both, but now she feared that her destiny had already been sealed, and there was no way to undo the damage that had been done. Days passed without a word from Malik. The village was in turmoil as unrest among the villagers grew, and without Malik's steady leadership, the once peaceful community began to crumble. Amani, despite her growing despair, knew she could not hide away from the truth of the prophecy any longer. The spirits had warned her, and now they were growing silent, leaving her to face the consequences alone. It felt as though she were walking a path of fire, one step away from everything she had worked so hard to build. She sought out the traveler, knowing that his mysterious presence had a role in the chaos. When she found him by the river, he was smiling, as though he had been waiting for her. "The time for hiding is over," he said cryptically, his eyes glinting with a knowing gleam. "The prophecy cannot be changed, no matter how hard you fight against it." Amani's frustration bubbled over. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. "Why have you come here to destroy everything?" The traveler's smile widened. "I seek nothing but what is already yours to give, Amani. The future is in your hands, but it comes with a price." Amani's fists clenched at her sides, but she knew there was no use in fighting him. The prophecy was not just a shadow, it was the reality she could not escape. As she walked away from the traveler, her mind raced. She had one final choice to make. Would she let the prophecy dictate her action? Or could she carve a new path, one that might heal the brokenness within her and the village?